I'm 92 years old. I don't take sleeping pills. I don't wake up in the middle of the night. And every morning, I wake up feeling like I'm only 40. There was a time I thought restful sleep had left me forever. I lay in bed, eyes wide open until 3 a.m. Even if I managed to doze off, by 4:30 I'd be awake again, heart racing, head buzzing like someone was beating a drum inside. I told myself, maybe this is just part of getting old. Until one morning I almost collapsed while making tea. The doctor said there was nothing wrong with me, but he looked at me and said, "Your body doesn't need more medicine, it needs real rest." And that was the moment I began my journey, to learn how to sleep again, like it was the first time. In this video, I'll share with you what truly changed me, from chronic insomnia to deep, uninterrupted sleep. The small habits I use every night, no pills, no expenses. And how after just a few weeks, I felt like my body had been reborn. Literally. If you've ever looked at the clock at 2 a.m. and thought, "I'm going to feel terrible all day tomorrow," then this video is for you. There's no magic here, just simple truths we've forgotten in a world that's grown far too noisy. Let's begin with a quiet evening, a slower pace, and a moment where you allow yourself to truly rest. 92 years old, but sleeping like I'm 40. The thing no one believes. People often laugh, or just don't believe me, when I say, I'm 92 years old, but I sleep as soundly as I did at 40. They ask if I'm joking. Some think I must be using some expensive sleeping medication. Others say, I'm only 65 and I can't even sleep properly. How do you do it? I understand their surprise, because at this age, people often say, it's normal to sleep poorly when you're old. But I don't believe that's our fate. I believe good sleep hasn't left us. We've just forgotten how to invite it back. Years ago, when I had just turned 70, I too began to struggle with sleep. Back then, I was living in the city where the lights outside were brighter than my bedside lamp, and car horns rang like alarm clocks every 30 minutes. I used to think, if I'm tired enough, I'll just fall asleep. But I was wrong. Sleep doesn't come just because we're exhausted. It only comes when we create the right conditions for it. That's something I, a stubborn old man, took nearly 10 years to understand. Today I live in a quieter place. But more importantly, I've learned to treat sleep like a cherished friend, not some random stroke of luck. And you can do the same, no matter your age. We can't stop the body from aging, but we can care for it so it ages with more ease. And sleep is the first thing we need to tend to. Now, I want to tell you what changed everything for me. It wasn't a pill, it wasn't an expensive mattress, it was a very small moment, but one that helped me realize this body needs to be prepared to rest. And that was where the journey began. From severe insomnia to an unexpected turning point. My own story. To be honest, I haven't always slept well. There was a long period in my life when insomnia was my nightly companion. I was around 75 at the time. I would lie awake tossing and turning until 2 or 3 a.m., even though my body was completely exhausted. And just when I finally drifted off, a few hours later, I'd jolt awake as if someone had shaken me. My heart would race. My chest felt like it was weighed down by a stone. In the morning, I was groggy, dizzy, and sometimes I'd even confuse the days. One morning, while making tea in the kitchen, everything started spinning. My vision darkened, and I nearly collapsed. Luckily, there was a table nearby I could grab onto. If it hadn't been there, I'm not sure I could have stayed on my feet. I went to the doctor the very next day. After a series of tests, the doctor told me there was nothing seriously wrong. He looked at me and said gently, "Your body isn't broken. It's just exhausted." I went home and sat in silence that entire afternoon. For the first time, I didn't blame my age. I didn't look for excuses or someone to blame. I simply thought, if I don't make a change, no one can save me from myself. I started reflecting on every habit I had, from how I ended my day to how I treated sleep itself. And I realized something important. Sleep doesn't come just because we're tired. It comes when we invite it, gently and consistently. From that day on, I decided to create a pre-sleep ritual. Nothing fancy, no cost, just a few small things, but powerful enough to help my mind unwind and let my body ease naturally into sleep. Let me tell you, exactly what I do in the 60 minutes before bed and why it's made such a big difference. The 60 minutes before bed, what I do differently from you. When I began my journey to reclaim sleep, the first thing I changed wasn't my pillow, and it wasn't my body clock either. It was the last 60 minutes of my day. I realized that I used to end my days in a rush. Late dinners, washing dishes, and immediately turning on the TV to watch the news. Some nights I'd check emails at 10 p.m., then carry that frustration straight into bed. I used to think sleep would come the moment I closed my eyes, but the body isn't a light switch. It needs a signal to know it's time to rest. Now I spend the last 60 minutes before bed sending those gentle signals. First, I take a warm shower for about 10 minutes. No special soap needed. Just water around 37 to 38 degrees Celsius or 98 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm enough to relax my muscles, like I'm decompressing after a long day. Then I make a cup of chamomile tea, caffeine-free and rich in apigenin, a compound that naturally calms the nervous system. Some nights I switch to warm water with a thin slice of ginger. Soft, slow, unhurried. I sit in a chair by the window and read a few pages of a paper book. Not self-help, not news. Just gentle stories, like I'm reading a bedtime tale. To myself. These little actions form a ritual, and somehow my body began to understand. And it's time to rest now. You might think, is all that really necessary? But think about how a child needs to be gently soothed to sleep each night. Don't we all need that same softness too? But if those 60 minutes are the warm-up, then the final 15 minutes before I lie down are what make the biggest difference. Because in that quiet moment, I learned how to turn off my mind gently, not with a switch, but with gratitude and letting go. Let me tell you what truly changed everything. The final 15 minutes, the secret to gently shutting down the mind. After making my tea and reading a few pages, my body's already calm, but there's still one small step, just 15 minutes, that I believe determines the entire quality of my sleep. I call it the time to shut down the mind kindly. In the last 15 minutes before bed, I do 3 simple things. First, I turn off all electronic devices. No phone, no TV, no background noise. Because the blue light and content from these devices keep my brain in busy mode, even if my body's tired. Second, I sit still for about 3 minutes and breathe slowly. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, exhale for 8 seconds. Just breathing, as if I'm quietly tidying up the room inside my head. Third, I write a few short lines of gratitude. Nothing big, sometimes it's just, the weather was beautiful today, or I'm glad I heard my grandson's laughter. And the strange thing is, every time I finish writing, my mind feels full and complete. Finally, I turn off the light and look into the darkness for a while, to let my eyes relax. I loosen my whole body and silently say to myself, there's nothing left to worry about. Today is complete. You know, I used to try to fall asleep as fast as I could, and that's exactly why I couldn't. But when I learned to close a day as if I were gently closing a book, sleep would arrive like a kind friend knocking on the door. No rush, no pressure. The lesson I learned is this: sleep isn't just a finish line, it's the reward for how fully you've closed your day. After 1 week, I began to notice a difference. But what truly surprised me were the changes that came after a few weeks and then a few months. Not just deeper sleep, but my entire body, my memory, and my spirit began to change. Let me tell you what happened and why I believe that deep sleep is the most affordable, most effective recovery method you can start tonight. After 3 weeks, the changes I never expected. I wasn't hoping for a miracle. I just wanted to sleep through the night for 5 hours straight, without waking up suddenly in the middle of it. But after just 3 weeks of consistently following the small habits I shared with you, something wonderful began to happen. First of all, I stopped waking up during the night, and if I did wake, I would simply roll over and fall back asleep easily. That anxious, restless feeling I used to get at 2 a.m., it vanished. In the morning, I woke up alert, no dizziness, no need to sit on the edge of the bed for a few minutes to gather myself. I started having breakfast again, something I used to skip because I felt too tired or bloated. After more than a month, I noticed my memory improving. My mind felt sharper. I could remember dates, tasks, even lyrics to old songs I hadn't sung in years. The dull aches in my back and knees also eased significantly. Not completely gone, but far lighter than before. And one thing truly surprised me. My skin looked brighter, softer, like sleep was repairing me from the inside out. At first I thought, maybe I just got lucky. But when I told all of this to my doctor, he simply smiled and said, "It's not luck, my friend. That's the natural reward your body gives you when you finally allow it to rest." The lesson I realized is this. We go searching for all kinds of supplements, but deep sleep is actually the most complete, most affordable, and most overlooked healing remedy we have. And the best part? It's free. All it requires is one thing, that you take your self-care seriously. If you're wondering, so where should I begin? Here's the good news. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. You just need to begin with 7 nights, gently, consistently, the same way I started. Let me show you the simplest way to begin tonight, and that will be the final message I want to leave you with. Start with 7 nights. You might be surprised if you've made it this far with me. Maybe there's a quiet question in your heart. Can I really do this? I understand that feeling. I too once sat in silence with a cold cup of tea in my hands thinking, I'm too old to change. But then I told myself, just try. Not forever, just 7 nights. And so I want to invite you, gently, to try 7 nights of true rest. No screens after 9 p.m., no late night meals, no carrying worries into bed. Just a warm cup of tea, a few handwritten lines, and a quiet space where you can return to yourself. You don't need to do everything at once. Choose one small thing that feels easiest for you. Maybe it's turning off the lights earlier, or sitting to breathe for 3 minutes before sleep. What matters isn't doing it perfectly. It's simply beginning. I often joke, sleeping well doesn't make me feel 40 again, but it sure makes me forget I'm 90. And I truly believe, if you allow your body a full week of real rest, you'll be surprised by what's waiting for you on the other side of a good night's sleep. One last little lesson I want to leave you with. You don't need to be young again to sleep like you're 40. You just need to treat yourself like you deserve to rest every day. If you're ready, try starting tonight. And each morning after, write one simple sentence. How do I feel today? If you make it through 7 nights, I believe, you won't want to go back to the old way of living. Leave a comment, I've started. Who knows, you might inspire someone else who also needs to find their way back to good sleep. Thank you for listening to my story. Sleep is not a luxury. It is your right. You only need to give yourself permission to pause and to breathe.